In the previous videos, I mentioned some problems or limitations of ChatGPT, but they were surmountable problems. You could find ways around them for the most part. Now I want to talk about some more substantive limitations. So the chief one is that ChatGPT doesn't always give correct answers or adequate answers. So if we put in this exam question, the coronavirus panicked households increased their demand for toilet paper, resulted in a shortage. According to the supply-demand model, we should have seen a substantial rise in the price of toilet paper in supermarkets. That didn't occur. Why did the supply-demand model make such a poor prediction? Okay, so this is not a great answer because although this first part is okay, the next part it talks about how manufacturers increase production to keep prices from rising. Well, if that were true, then we wouldn't have seen a shortage in the first place. So that's not really adequate here. Additionally, retailers may have implemented purchasing limits to prevent hoarding to ensure customers have access to the product. Well, that did actually occur. But you might ask, well, why did the supermarkets do that? It would be more appropriate to answer in terms of the supermarket sector is highly concentrated. It's an oligopoly, or it's virtually a duopoly. So the firms have substantial control over their prices, and they made a strategic decision in this particular case, partly self-interested. If one of the if Coles were to increase their prices relative to Woolworths, then Coles would have perhaps seen a substantial shift in demand or fall in demand, and Woolworths might have seen an increase in demand, which would have flowed over to other products. Also, Coles might have suffered a substantial reputational risk, and it might have been seen as profit mongering in a crisis situation. So to avoid that long-term harm to reputation, they may have, this may be an explanation for why they limited their prices and instituted quotas, basically, on how many toilet rolls you could buy at the time. Additionally, government intervention played a role. No, that's not true. The government didn't engage in any kind of price regulation whatsoever, so that's just wrong. So it goes on to say that supply-demand models based on simplifications, yeah, that's in general true, but you need to say exactly in what way are its assumptions wrong. And here we go back to the fact that it's not a perfectly competitive market where the demand-supply model would apply, but rather is an oligopolistic market structure. So this gives an example of how ChatGPT can give a poor answer to a question. I'll give you another example. This is just a multiple choice question. And we'll see how it goes with that one. So we're asking what's going to happen to the equilibrium price and quantity of Mars bars if you get new management strategies that are implemented that increase productivity on the one hand, and simultaneously it's discovered that the peanuts in Snickers bars, which are a substitute, cause brain damage. So in answering this question, it's chosen the incorrect option. It said that the quantity will tend to rise, but the price will fall. That's not true. Because there's an increase in demand and an increase in the supply of Mars bars, we can definitely say that the equilibrium quantity will rise, but it's indeterminate as to whether the equilibrium price will rise or fall. That will depend on how much demand increases and how much supply increases by. So it could rise, the price could rise or fall. So the correct answer we're looking for is B. It's unclear as to why it has chosen D, because its explanation here is correct. However, its conclusion, together these two events will cause an increase in the supply and an increase in demand, which means the equilibrium price will tend to fall. Well, that's not necessarily true. So this is a case where ChatGPT, for some reason or other, has made a mistake. Another example is it's a conceptual question, but it requires a degree of analytical thinking. So here we have a question where we're assuming a monopolist owner of tennis courts, and they can rent them out. The marginal cost of renting out each court is 0, and we're assuming the monopolist faces a downward sloping straight line demand curve. However, the additional information is that only 8 courts are demanded when the price is 0. The demand curve is going to intersect with the horizontal axis at 8 tennis courts. So how many courts will the owner rent out? Why? Okay, so this answer is incorrect. I mean, it's getting a basic principle right about it's got to compare marginal revenue and marginal cost. However, it goes on to say that it's going to rent out 8 tennis courts at the price of 0. Now that's not, obviously it's not the case, because the point at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost will be at 4 tennis courts. So this is going to be an incorrect answer. ChatGPT is also pretty hit and miss when it comes to doing calculations, doing a bit of math. So if we put in this, I've shown you this one before, but let's see how it goes. We've got a demand function here. I've just slightly altered, I've rearranged the demand function basically. And we've got the supply function, find the equilibrium price and quantity. Alright, so it's given the correct answer in this case, but let's take that question and change it just slightly. We will say QD, QS, and see if it has any impact on it. And let's call it determine the equilibrium price and quantity. Okay, so here it's essentially the same question, but it's given a completely different answer and an incorrect answer in this case. So it's pretty hit and miss when it comes to doing calculations. It seems to be very sensitive to the wording that's used. Let's take another example and get it to do some calculus. So here we've got assuming this equation is the average revenue or the demand function for a single firm, derive the firm's marginal revenue function. Okay, so this answer is totally wrong, and for some reason the AI has decided that, incorrectly, that we can derive the marginal revenue function by taking the derivative of the average revenue function, and that's false. You would have to take the derivative of the total revenue function. So it gives the completely wrong answer in that case. ChatGPT is also hopeless at personal questions. It just doesn't have information about it, so it can't give an answer. So for example, if I ask this type of question, select an industry in your local area, which market structure model best represents this industry and why? So it just says, I'm pretty limited, I can't really tell you about it. But then it goes on to provide you with a set of market structures to choose from in abstract terms, but it's not really answering the question, obviously. It does provide a kind of suggestion which a student might use to try and build an answer from by a local grocery store, for example, a monopolistic competition. So, I mean, it's it's on the road to helping a student answer the question, but in itself, this is a poor answer. I'll take another example. We'll make it very specific. We'll make it very geographically specific. So, is Starbucks successful in the cafe market in Parramatta? So again, it says I can't really tell you that. Don't have that specific kind of information. And then it bangs on about Starbucks for a while. But this is, and then it gives a waffly statement here, but it's not really answering the question. It says that it's possible that Starbucks is successful, and it's not really the raging success that it was projected by the Starbucks Corporation itself. In fact, Starbucks struggles in pretty much all Australian cafe markets, no matter what their particular suburb location. And another limitation is that it can't deal with anything that is from 2022 or 2023. So, for example, if we ask the question, what was the Australian government's fiscal policy stance in 2022? Would this contribute to economic growth or not? It's not going to know the answer. Okay, so it's just provided some generic information that you could pick up from the textbook, but it's not actually answering the question. So anyway, the whole point to this is to say that you should probably muck around with this and put your exam questions and your assignment questions into ChatGPT and see what it comes up with. If it starts giving pretty good answers to your questions, then you probably need to seriously consider rewriting your exams in a way that ChatGPT can't really answer, or it's going to make systematic mistakes about. And you can just, by an iterative process, by a suck it and see kind of approach, try different kinds of questions and see how ChatGPT handles them until it starts coming up with I don't know the answer, or it starts making mistakes. And they're the kinds of questions that you can use in exams and assignments to make your assessment tasks ChatGPT proof, so to speak. Unfortunately, it looks like they're working hard on further developing this artificial intelligence software, so it's likely to improve over time. So just bear that in mind. It might be a case of continually updating and rechecking the kinds of questions that you ask students and the kinds of assessment tasks you assign to them. Anyway, that's that. Good luck.